the PMI-PBA exam and application process. In this section, we will cover the qualifications needed to take the exam. We'll go over the application process, and we'll also provide some tips to get through the application process. We'll review the PMI-PBA exam blueprint, go over the types of questions you can expect on the PMI-PBA exam, review what's required to maintain your certification once you're a certified professional in business analysis, and we'll finish up with some exam taking tips. Most of the information I will be sharing with you in this section can be found in the PMI-PBA handbook. There's much more detail in the handbook, so I recommend you have a look at that as well before beginning your application process. You can find the PMI-PBA handbook online as a PDF download by typing in PMI-PBA handbook into your search browser. To qualify for the PMI-PBA exam, the qualifications differ slightly depending if you have a secondary degree or bachelor's degree or higher. Regardless of your situation, you will need 35 contact hours of training on business analysis practices. This course will provide you with the 35 contact hours to satisfy this requirement. The PMI-PBA handbook states that self-directed learning will not qualify for the education component. This is, however, a structured course with the course syllabus and defined learning program, so this will satisfy the education component. This differs from watching YouTube videos or reading a book and attempting to claim the 35 contact hours. You do, however, need to have completed the course before claiming it for contact hours on your application. So if you are looking to submit your application before you finish this course, you must use other business analysis training to satisfy the 35 contact hours. If you attempt to claim this course as part of the 35 contact hours before you complete it, it can disqualify you from the PMI-PBA exam process in case of an audit. If you have a secondary degree, you will need 60 months, which equates to 5 years of business analysis work experience within the last 8 years. This was a change that PMI made in June 2020 to all of their certification qualifications to count number of months rather than number of hours in the application. If you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you will need 36 months, which equates to 3 years of business analysis work experience, accrued again within the last 8 years. To complete the work experience requirement, we have provided an Excel template that you can use to record your work experience before entering it into the application. PMI conducts random application audits on PMI-PBA aspirants. What is an application audit? PMI may request additional information or proof that the information you listed in your application is accurate. For example, they may request the course completion certificates for your training, a copy of your bachelor's degree, and contact your references to confirm your work experience. Why do they do this? It's to maintain quality or the value of the certification. Once you become a PMI-PBA certified practitioner, would you want someone else who didn't meet the qualifications to share the same certification as you? Who does PMI audit? Anyone who applies for the PMI-PBA certification is subject to a random audit. PMI doesn't advertise how many people get audited, but it's rumored to be as high as 50%. You're notified via email if you are one of the lucky ones chosen to be audited. While you can't prevent an audit, there are things that you can do to proactively prepare for one, to make it much easier on yourself if you are audited. First of all, contact your contacts. Ensure that your contacts are aware that you may be using them as your reference and that the contact information is accurate. Your references may no longer be with the organization you've listed them as a reference for, and that's okay. Note that PMI will only ask for your contacts if you are audited, but it's better to be prepared. Use terminology in the PMI Guide to Business Analysis to describe your business analysis work. For example, use process names, deliverables, and tools and techniques within the guide. Describe what you did and how you did it, rather than including something like the job description. Check that your work experience adds up and that you haven't double counted overlapping experience. Let me clarify what this means. You are allowed to have worked on 2 projects at the same time, as many of us do work on multiple initiatives at once, but the work experience cannot be double counted. Show your experience across all domains. PMI wants to see that you're a well-rounded business analyst. If you truly understand the processes within the PMI Guide to Business Analysis, you are very likely performing activities across all domains already, since many of the processes are performed concurrently. And lastly, be honest. If you have found to have misrepresented yourself in your application, you may be permanently banned from all PMI certification exams. That's definitely not a situation you want to find yourself in. So please take the time to look over your application and dot your I's and cross your T's. Let's go over the application process and a general timeline of activities. When you create your application, you can save it, and you will have 90 days to submit it or the application expires. You can reapply or restart your application when you are ready. Once your application is submitted, you will receive a response within 5 calendar days on whether your application has been cleared or if you're being audited. You will have 90 days to complete the audit. If you fail to respond to the audit within 90 days, or you fail the audit, in that the information provided is insufficient or a reference doesn't check out, your application will be suspended and you will need to wait a year before you can reapply. Once you clear the audit, your application will be in the active state. Then you are provided with 1 year to schedule and clear the exam. It's recommended that you schedule your exam sooner rather than later, so you have a buffer in case you do not clear it the first time. If you do not pass the exam on your first try, you can attempt the exam 2 more times within the year. If you happen to fail the exam 3 times within this application period, your application will be suspended, and you will need to wait a year before reapplying. If a year has lapsed and you did not clear the exam, but attempted it less than 3 times, your application is expired, and you can reapply when you are ready. Do you happen to know which model I used to represent this information? If you said state diagram, you're right. We'll cover state diagrams in more detail in section 7.2, Create and Analyze Models. Unsure of the costs associated with certification? Let's go over some of the fees. The exam fee for members is $405 and $555 for non-members. PMI membership is $129 per year, and there's a $10 one-time application fee for new PMI members. This means the member discount for the exam is greater than the price of first year's membership. Chapter membership can vary depending on the chapter, but it's usually between $20 to $40 a year. PMI membership and chapter membership are not required to sit for the PMI-PBA exam, but I personally recommend joining. I'll get into why a bit more later. You're hopefully not going to need this, but the re-examination fee is $275 for a member and $375 for a non-member. Your certification needs to be renewed every 3 years, and that fee is $60 for members and $150 for non-members. Some of the benefits of PMI membership include an exam discount that is greater than your first year's membership. This should be reason enough to join. You can also download PMI's foundational standards and practice guides free. You will need the PMI Guide to Business Analysis and Business Analysis for Practitioners, a practice guide, as references for the PMI-PBA exam. If you prefer a hard copy, members also receive a discount on the print versions. Once you obtain your certification, you will need to earn Professional Development Units, or PDUs for short, to maintain your certification. PMI members have premium access to projectmanagement.com, which has thousands of free webinars that offer PDUs. You'll find a few of my webinars on projectmanagement.com as well. PMI also offers free one-day virtual conferences through projectmanagement.com. For example, every November, PMI hosts a free one-day business analysis virtual conference. I had the honor of speaking at PMI's 2017 Business Analysis Virtual Conference. You can also connect with practitioners across the globe via projectmanagement.com. You can pose questions like, what's your go-to business analysis technique, and have the global community provide you with their feedback. Some of the benefits of chapter membership include Local networking opportunities. There are so many people I know that have landed some amazing career opportunities through connections they've made at local chapters, myself included. I've also helped others find new and exciting opportunities. You can gain experience through volunteer opportunities. I personally have gained so much through volunteering. My passion for business analysis led me to start the first business analysis community within a PMI chapter at PMI Toronto. Not only did I gain leadership experience, I've made many invaluable connections, and it's opened so many more doors, many I did not even know existed. Local chapters also offer learning opportunities to earn PDUs. The PMI-PBA exam consists of 200 multiple choice questions with 4 answer choices each. Out of the 200 questions, only 175 of those questions are scored, and 25 are considered pre-test and not scored. Those 25 questions are used to test the questions themselves for future versions of the PMI-PBA exam. You will not know which ones are scored versus not scored, and the 25 pre-test questions will be mixed in with the other questions within the exam. You are provided with 4 hours to complete the exam. This works out to be about 1.2 minutes or 72 seconds per question. Some questions will obviously be quicker to answer, and some will take a bit longer. Also note that there are no breaks in the middle of the exam. If you need to use the bathroom or just get up for a second to stretch your legs, the timer is still running. I cannot comment on what the experience is everywhere else, but in North America, there are designated test centers that are run by third parties to administer the computer-based exams. When I was taking my exam, there were others there that were taking different, unrelated exams, not necessarily PMI exams either. For example, I think someone at my center was taking a nursing exam. The availability at the exam center nearest you will dictate how quickly you will be able to schedule your exam. This is the PMI-PBA exam blueprint that shows the breakdown of questions on the exam. I really hesitated showing you this, but I figure most of you will see a table like this in the application handbook and ask about it. I added in the mapping of the domains to the knowledge areas in the PMI Guide to Business Analysis, which may or may not mean anything to you right now anyway, since you may not have cracked open the book yet. No worries, no judgment. Let me provide a bit of background on this. PMI conducts role delineation studies to elicit information from the community as a basis for the PMI-PBA exam. The results from the role delineation study were also the basis of the material for the first edition of the PMI Guide to Business Analysis. As an author of the guide, we took the results from the role delineation study and organized and articulated the information in a manner that would be easily understood by the community. We may have enhanced the information with examples wherever possible to help convey the point. When the role delineation study was conducted, domains and tasks were used to categorize the business analysis activities. Since then, we made a decision to reorganize the business analysis activities into knowledge areas and process groups to match the format of other PMI foundational standards, like the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or more commonly referred to as the PMBOK Guide. Either way, I wouldn't pay too much attention to this or stress about which process falls under which category. I wouldn't use this to focus your studies either. I can't see your expressions, but I can feel your eyebrows raised at me right now. You're probably not convinced and thinking, well, why not? Doesn't this mean I need to focus on elicitation and analysis, since the majority of the questions are there? Well, sure, but analysis is also the largest knowledge area from a content perspective, so it makes sense that more questions are allocated to that section. Solution evaluation is a smaller knowledge area from a content perspective, so it makes sense that there are fewer questions allocated to that section. Remember, our goal is to understand all business analysis concepts, regardless of what domain, knowledge area, or process group they're categorized into. If you truly understand the concepts in the guide, it really won't matter what you are asked on the exam. You'll be confident you'll have the right answer. And that's what I want you to focus on as we move forward with this course. There are 3 different question types that you could get on the exam, that being situational, interpretational, and knowledge-based. Let's go over a few examples. Let's start with situational questions. Situational questions provide you with a scenario and ask what you would do in that scenario. They are sometimes long-winded and provide you with information that isn't really required. They also often have more than one correct answer, where you would need to select the best answer based on the scenario. Remember, you want to answer from a what would I do from a PMI best practice perspective. Let's take a look at this example. You're facilitating a requirements workshop to understand the current state of the insurance renewal process. There were 8 stakeholders invited to the meeting, and 7 have showed up. You've opted to start the meeting without the last participant. The 8th participant arrives 15 minutes late. Do you A. Stop the meeting to brief the latecomer, B. Stop the meeting and mention the meeting started 15 minutes ago, C. Do not stop the meeting but brief them during a break, or D. Do not stop the meeting and brief them only if they ask? The purpose of the workshop and how many stakeholders were invited are pieces of information that aren't needed to answer this question. B and D can probably be eliminated right away, as B is a bit of a harsh response and D probably isn't the best answer. The question is now, do we stop the meeting or not stop the meeting? In the real world, admittedly, there probably were situations where I've done both, but it depends on who this last stakeholder was. If they were a key decision maker, then I'd probably stop to brief them, but if not, probably not. The question didn't specify, so based on that, C, do not stop the meeting, but brief them during a break, is the best answer. And the reference for that is within the Business Analysis for Practitioners, a practice guide, in section 4.5.5.3. Next, let's go over interpretational questions. Interpretational questions provide you with data or information and ask you what you would deduce based on that information. Let's take a look at this example. You're evaluating a burn-down chart that evaluates the number of backlog items remaining across iterations, and a backsliding effect is occurring. What does this mean? A. This may be a cause for concern. B. This is a cause for concern. C. This is normal for items to decrease over time. Or D. This is normal for items to increase over time. We first need to know what backsliding means. Backsliding is when a burn-down chart shows an increase in whatever is being tracked over time. So C can be eliminated right away. Now, is it normal or not for the number of backlog items remaining to increase over time? Backlog items remaining typically decrease over time, so D can be eliminated. The fact that they are increasing, is it definitely an issue? It can be a cause for concern, but not necessarily. Maybe we're very early on in the initiative, so this explains the increase. Or maybe we're still learning about our product and adding additional features based on customer feedback as features are being released. So A is the best answer in this case. And the reference for that is within the PMI Guide to Business Analysis, section 5.4.2.1. Now let's review what knowledge-based questions are. Knowledge-based questions are sometimes known as fact-based questions or definition-based questions. They're the most straightforward types of questions you can get. If you're familiar with the materials in the PMI Guide to Business Analysis, most find these quite easy to answer. However, you'll probably see the least number of knowledge-based questions on the exam, as the exam is meant to test your ability to perform business analysis, not your ability to recite information in a book. The majority of the questions you will see are situational or interpretational, which is why, again, I recommend we focus on understanding the materials rather than memorization of it. Let's take a look at an example of a knowledge-based question. What is enterprise architecture? Is it A, an organizational framework used to model business architecture, providing different approaches of analyzing various aspects of the business? B, conditions that influence, constrain, or direct how business analysis is conducted? C, a collection of the business functions, organizational structures, and locations and processes of an organization, including documents and depictions of those elements? Or D, a collection of the business and technology components needed to operate an enterprise? The correct answer is D, a collection of the business and technology components needed to operate an enterprise. And the reference for this is within the glossary of the PMI Guide to Business Analysis. Once you've earned your PMI-PBA certification,
yay!
And you've done your happy dance, unfortunately, the work isn't over. Sorry to ruin the party. The learning never stops. You will need to maintain your PMI-PBA certification by earning 60 professional development units, otherwise known as PDUs, in a 3-year period. And it's fairly easy nowadays to earn PDUs. One of the many ways is attending PMI chapter meetings. One of the questions I get quite often is, if I'm already PMP certified, does this mean I need 120 PDUs in a 3-year period? If you're already PMP certified, or if you hold any of the other PMI certifications, you may be able to count the same PDUs against multiple certifications. For example, if you attend a 1-hour chapter meeting on adopting the Agile mindset in the workplace, where Agile tools and techniques are discussed, this would be counted as 1 PDU towards the PMI-PBA, as well as the PMP, and the PMI-ACP for that matter, which is the Agile Certified Practitioner certification. I'm going to wrap this section up with some exam taking tips. First of all, arrive early. The PMI-PBA handbook recommends arriving at least 30 minutes before your scheduled appointment. The test center won't care about traffic or the fact that your kids had a complete meltdown that morning. Plan ahead and be well rested, and get there early so you're all zen and not panicked because you're rushing in at the last minute. You want to be in the right headspace before you start a 4-hour exam. Also note that according to the PMI-PBA handbook, candidates who arrive late to the appointment will not be permitted to test. Eat before and bring a snack for after. 4 hours is a really long time, not counting the time to check you in and check you out of the test center and the commute there and back. I don't know about you, but I get hangry when I skip a meal and my brain just doesn't function very well. Spend about 5 minutes at the start of the exam to do a brain dump while everything is still fresh in your head. After you've checked in, the test center administrator will provide you with a small booklet of scratch paper and 2 pencils, or 2 erasable marker boards, 2 markers, and an eraser. This is dependent on availability at the test center. You will not get to choose one or the other. A calculator is built into the computer-based test, but if you prefer, you can request a handheld calculator in either scenario. You can request another scratch paper booklet if you need, but you would have to give back the one you've used. You can only have 1 scratch paper booklet or 2 marker boards at your desk at a time. Keep that in mind if you plan on doing a brain dump. Practice creating a brain dump on a single sheet of paper within 5 minutes and see if it helps you when you complete the practice exam. The interesting thing is, because you've practiced the brain dump, you likely won't need it during the exam. It's there as a safety net and a bit of a confidence booster. I'm personally a fan of the brain dump. I did glance at it a couple of times to confirm I still remembered correctly after 3 hours into the exam and fatigue started to set. It made me feel better that my brain was still working. And the last tip, take breaks if you need to. There are no scheduled breaks during the exam, but if you find that your brain isn't functioning anymore and a little bit of anxiety is creeping up, it's probably a good idea to take a breather. You can exit the exam room to stretch your legs, but the exam timer will continue to run, and you will need to be checked back in using the same process as when you first arrived.